It's the Pikachu Project.
Hello and welcome to the Pikachu Project, a spoiler-filled re-ranking of all 22 Pokemon movies. We are your two expert hosts. My name is Gigi. I have seen every episode of the Pokemon anime.
I am Walex, a big Pikachu fan and a doctor, and loving Pikachu more and more with every passing day.
With every passing movie. So, back in 2015, we watched all the Pikachu Project movies. Those are the ones that come out every year that are kind of in the anime style generally. We ranked them. We continued watching them as they came out. And right now, we have a lot of free time. We decided to go ahead and rewatch them in our rank order from worst to best and see if we want to make any changes to our list. So do you want to just get into it?
Yeah, let's talk about the movies that we've ranked so far.
All right. Let's look at our current rankings. So
I was also just thinking we could use, with my Pikachu fandom, we should use my elementary school photo of me as a small child with a Pikachu shirt as just the image for this podcast.
Should we?
No, we should not.
Oh, it's really cute, though.
Uh-huh.
It's a really cute shirt. You look very happy.
Early evidence of my love of Pikachu.
Yeah. One of these episodes, you should talk about all your Pikachu plushes. Yeah, maybe
off-brand
later.
Pikachu dolls.
Yeah.
From the era of off-brand Pikachus.
Yeah. Okay, so our list so far, we have at the very bottom, in its own tier, Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea. One tier up, from bottom to top, we have Pokemon the Movie 2000, The Power of One. Above that, we have
Genesect and the Legend Awakened.
Thank you. Above that, we have Pokemon Heroes, Latios and Latias. Above that, we have
Hoopa and the Clash of Ages.
Thank you. Those are the two I can never remember. Above that, we have Pokemon the Movie White, Victini and Zekrom, or Pokemon the Movie Black, Victini and Reshiram. They're the same movie. Then we move one tier up again. At the bottom of that tier, we have The Rise of Darkrai, followed by Arceus and the Jewel of Life for me. Those two are swapped for Alex's list. Above that, we have
Kyurem versus the Sword of Justice.
Yes, thank you. Above that, we have Diancie and the Cocoon of Destruction. Above that, we have
Giratina and the Sky Warrior.
Thank you. Above that, we have No, you missed one. Oh, no, you didn't miss one. Wait, what? Oh, yeah, you didn't miss one. Sorry. This list is getting too long. Above that, we have our next tier. We have, for me, Volcanion and the Mechanical Marvel, followed by the 3D remake of Pokemon the First Movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution. Above that, we have Lucario and the Mystery of Mew. And above that, we have I Choose You, Pokemon the Movie 20, I Choose You. For Alex's list in that tier at the bottom is the 3D Mewtwo remake, Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution. Above that, we have Volcanion and the Mechanical Marvel. Above that, we have Lucario and the Mystery of Mew. And then above that, we have Pokemon the Movie I Choose You.
Yeah.
So there's still only a couple spots where our lists are different.
Yeah, so in that tier, it's basically just the Mewtwo 3D and the Volcanion movie are flipped.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into it for this week. First movie that we watched, I keep saying this week as if we do it weekly, but it's really just every few days.
Yeah.
3 to 4 days. The first movie we watched was Pokemon Zoroark Master of Illusions.
Bonus Piplup.
Bonus Piplup. Yeah, we forgot there was another 4th gen movie with Piplup in it.
Yeah, because it has a trilogy of 4th gen movies, but then you get Bonus Piplup.
Yeah, with the Zoroark 5th gen preview movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the plot.
So Zoroark and what's this movie called? Sorry.
Zoroark Master of Illusions.
Zoroark Master of Illusions.
Yeah.
It basically starts off with Ash, Pikachu, and Dawn, and Piplup, and Brock.
Yeah.
Who I keep forgetting is still there. They're all in a Pokemon Center watching a match of Pokemon Bokker, which is like soccer with B-A.
With a B.
Yeah, with a B. And in this Bokker match, some Elekid and Beldum and all of them are playing basically like more like Quidditch,
yeah,
really,
because it's like
floating balls going into
goals.
floating goals.
Yeah.
And it's this really thrilling thing. Everybody in the Pokemon Center is so into this Bocker match. And apparently it's a really, really big sport. They're talking about how important it is. When suddenly you see a mysterious man showing his team of Bocker players, which include a Raikou, Entei, and a Suicune. And they do a really great job showing off their Bocker skills for a little bit before basically saying, come see the, I think, opening
exhibition kind of like.
I think it's like the opening
showcase,
match or like the exhibition.
Something like that.
Of the Bocker championships at this city.
Crown City.
Right. And then the TV goes off and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see the Bocker match. Mm-hmm. And then they all start heading out of the Pokemon Center, presumably towards the Bocker Crown City. Meanwhile, you cut to that same mysterious man now on an airship.
Well, you cut to a Zoroark who is in a cage with a little baby Zorua in its fur. And the cage opens. You see the Raikou, Entei, and Suicune that you just saw with the mysterious man with the white, yellow hair patch in front of his hair and yellow eyes. And he basically commands Zoroark to transform into Raikou. Mm-hmm.
Just to test its abilities.
Yeah. And then they kidnap the Zorua, basically using it as a threat, saying we've gotten your little baby Zorua. You have to do what we say, or else we're gonna hurt this Zorua.
Yeah.
But unbeknownst to the Zorua escapes.
Right, and is now running through the ventilation shafts. And manages to
escape the ship.
Yeah, escape the ship.
Jump down from the ship and turn into a Jumpluff on the way down, so it doesn't die.
Meanwhile, you sort of see this mysterious man whose name is revealed to be Kodai and his assistant Rowena looking at a bunch of screens and going, yes, we will achieve our goals, which, they kind of haven't touched on exactly what those are. So the Zorua falls off the plane, lands on some Skiploom, turns into a Skiploom, and manages to drift on down to the ground and safely land on the ground.
However, it disturbs a bunch of Vigoroth who start attacking it. Ash and friends happen to be nearby and on their way to Crown City. And so they go and they say, hey, you shouldn't bully Pokemon or something.
Yeah.
Bullying is wrong.
And so Pikachu and Piplup both jump out to go save Zorua, but Piplup manages to trip, roll, and smack himself against a tree in such a way that confuses the Vigoroth so much that they just walk away. And so Ash and Dawn say, I'm glad we were able to do that without fighting.
Yeah. The Zorua explains, once everyone's like, whoa, it's telepathy. The Zorua explains that it's trying to find his Mima, it's Mima, their Mima, which is the Zoroark. So Ash, of course, says, of course, we're going to help you. So so Zorua transforms into Ash, and it's kind of funny.
And they start heading towards Crown City.
Yeah. Meanwhile, back in the ship, they have their fake holographic image of Zorua, so they can convince the Zoroark to go and transform into Entei, Raikou, and Suicune to destroy this city.
Or at least pretend to destroy the city using its illusions.
Yes. There's a lady who, right before this happens, sees a Celebi, a real Celebi, flying through the city, and she's amazed because she said, Celebi's returned. Finally, after 20 years, Celebi's back. But now, everyone's evacuating because
the Zoroark lands in the city and starts making huge waves of tidal waves and huge infernos seemingly appearing in the city, even though all of it is actually an illusion. And so everybody's running from these infernos and feeling like they barely made it. Meanwhile, Kodai is editing footage from the news, which we later learned that he's actually a new media conglomerate too. Yeah. A media
he
mogul.
Owns all the media, basically.
Yeah. And he's broadcasting that doctored images that make it look like the supposed Raikou, Entei, and Suicune are destroying parts of the city, monuments and bus stops are getting melted by the inferno, when in reality they're all totally fine.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we also forgot to mention that he never actually had any of those Pokemon at the
Yes.
start of the movie either. They were all part of his illusion orbs, which he seems to be developing some kind of technology to simulate Zoroark's ability.
Yeah. So everyone is evacuating the city, including Ash and friends. And they run into someone who can tell that Zorua is not a human because it has a tail. And so, and says, oh, whoa, that's a Zorua. And Zorua says, I have to find Mima, and I can smell, basically, that she's in the city. So the guy says, okay, I know a secret entrance to the city. I'm a reporter or something.
Yeah.
And
his name is Carl, I think.
yes. And he helps them back into the city, and he tells them all about Kodai and how he's, a media mogul, and he made all of these successful business kind of strategies, and so he's this super rich and powerful guy.
And I think he knows that supposedly Kodai can see the future.
Yeah, there's like a rumor.
And that's how he's able to know all of the business important things just before it happens.
Yeah. I think that the humans get separated from the Pokemon at some point. They also join up with Celebi, and they're all searching for Zoroark together. During all of this, Kodai has been wafting around the city on his little little airship platform thing.
Yeah, popular among villains.
And
in this
he has
series.
been he has been trying to find he has been checking all of these countdown clocks because he had a vision. He can't see the future. He had a vision that there was going to be something called a time ripple near one of the countdown clocks, and he is trying to find it. So he's checking all of the countdown clocks. That's why he wanted to evacuate the city.
Meanwhile,
And he keeps saying, the time ripple will be all mine.
yeah. Meanwhile, he has successfully fooled the city and so is trying to reclaim Zoroark, which he does actually very quickly and effectively using one of his goons. Traps Zoroark in a cage and stuffs it back up in his lair airplane thing.
Yeah.
He also has a vision around this time that Ash and friends, who he does not recognize, but he sees in his future vision, that they will attempt to stop his plans.
Yeah.
And so says to his sidekick, as soon as the sidekick has his kind of henchman, as soon as the henchman has retrieved Zoroark, these kids will be a problem. I need you to find them and deal with them as well.
Yeah. Meanwhile, back on the ship after he left, we saw Rowena say, oh God, he finally left. Now I can get some real work done. And we also later see her digging through his files, looking for something. Eventually, at some point, Ash and friends all end up at because the lady from the beginning is the mom of the guy who, no, sorry, that's not wrong. The guy from the beginning, even though the mom and the kid and the guy who they met up with have the same hair color, the guy from the beginning is the dad of the guy who Ash and friends met up with, Carl.
Yeah, so basically they meet Carl's dad. Carl meets up with his dad, and Ash and friends meet his dad, and this other lady who's also living with the dad or
something, friends or something.
Yeah.
And they explain that 20 years ago, nobody knows why, but all of the greenery in Crown City and the surrounding area died, and Celebi stopped returning to the city. Celebi had been the protector of the city. Mm-hmm. They also know for sure now that the footage is doctored because they saw the Celebi statue and the Entei, Raikou, and Suicune statue. Entei, Raikou, and Suicune also known protectors of this particular city. And that in the news had been destroyed, or stuff around them had been destroyed, and they were totally fine. So they know for sure now that the footage is being doctored.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And basically, I think that what did they decide that they need to do? They're kind of still looking for Zoroark at this point, I think.
Yeah, the main thing that they're doing is to try to find Zoroark.
So Ash and friends rush out, continuing to look for Zoroark while Kodai is looking for the time ripple, and the henchman catches up to Ash and friends, and with some struggle, some trickery, manages to box all of them up and ship them all up to the airship, basically, or lair. I don't know where.
So back at the airship, we see, with the airship, by the way, is parked on the water. It's like a seaplane airship. We see the box be delivered. Rowena says, what's that? That was not expected. She goes out there, she opens the box, and she's like, hi, I'm Kodai's assistant. And the guy, Carl, that they're with is like, yeah, right. And she lets down her hair and she reveals, actually, I'm an undercover reporter as well. I'm trying. I know that there's something sketchy going on with Kodai, so I'm trying to find out what's happening. So she lets them free.
Yeah, and I think that she was able to dig up what Kodai's goal is, and lets Ash and friends know that he's looking for the time ripple.
Yeah, so they go back down, I think, to try to find Pikachu and Piplup and Celebi and Zorua, and they're going through the canals, and she explains to them that Kodai can see the future, and that he has some sort of power or something from the right. That he got power. Yeah, she tells them basically the whole story, right?
I don't think they're aware of what happens when he uses the time ripple, but they know that he needs the time ripple to get his future power. She knows that.
Okay.
And so she explains to them his power has been waning over the years.
Yes.
And he needs to find another time ripple in order to be able to continue seeing the future.
Yeah. Also, meanwhile, I think Zoroark at some point escapes from the cage.
Does that happen yet? That happens when...
A lot of things are happening simultaneously in this movie. And another a real Entei, Raikun, Suicune, who are the protectors of the city and also all shinies, come because they can tell the city is under attack, that something bad is happening in the city. At this point, though, Zoroark has escaped and is trying to find Zorua, and is back in the city. And Entei, Raikou, and Suicune get confused and think that Zoroark is the one attacking the city, and so start attacking Zoroark. Right?
Yeah. I think, I'm trying to remember, at some point, Kodai and Ash and friends get into a kind of like a minor skirmish initially on. Around one of the time ripples.
Kodai, Pikachu, and Piplup and Celebi get into a skirmish.
Oh, yeah.
Because he finds them, I think they encounter, and he's looking for Celebi because he knows Celebi creates the time ripple. And Pikachu and Piplup are trying to defend so aggressively, and Zorua is there too, and they're all, I think Zorua at one point bites him and attacks him.
Oh, I remember now, because Kodai looked through all of the time little clocks that the countdown clocks. He finds all of the countdown clocks, but cannot find the time ripple.
Yeah, so he needs to find Celebi.
He's had a vision that Celebi will give him a vision to find the actual time ripple. Yeah. So he goes after Celebi, who is with the other Pokemon. He has a vision of choking Celebi.
Yeah. So he chokes Celebi. And he does have a vision of
the final countdown clock, which he finds is...
And it's in the stadium, the Bacher Stadium.
Yeah, but he's still not sure where it is because he has to overhear that from Ash and friends before he does.
Yeah, he's not totally sure. But Ash and friends eventually find out that it's at the Bacher Stadium because the dad of Carl was the one who built the countdown clocks. Right. And so he tells them because Rowena says... he's looked at all the countdown clocks I can see on my little tracker thing because she still has the ability to track him because he doesn't know yet that she is a reporter. And it says that he's checked all the countdown clocks, and the dad says, actually, there's one more. It's in the stadium. Right.
Unfortunately, Kodai has had a little helicopter drone following them around and overhears and finds out exactly where the time ripple is now. Yeah. By hearing Carl's dad. And now they're all rushing, both of them trying to get to the time ripple before the other. And
Zoroark is still trying to, I think there's a moment where they convince Suicune, Raikou, and Entei. I think that the dad and his friend convince them that Zoroark is not the enemy, as well as the animal friends that live in the town, that live in the city. And so now Zoroark is tracking Zorua at the same time. Yeah. As they're all running to the Bacher clock.
Yeah. So, the Kodai takes off by car, Ash and friends take off by tunnel. They're racing towards the countdown clock. They all come out of a manhole cover and are all outside the stadium. Dawn tries to slow down Kodai, while Ash, Celebi, Pikachu, Zorua run on ahead.
Ash releases Celebi and says, fly away, Celebi, and Celebi flies away. So Kodai follows Celebi. Turns out that Celebi was a Zorua. Yeah. And Zorua bites him on the arm again. Yeah. Bites him on the wrist.
Yeah, importantly. And now, thanks to all of the diversion tactics, Ash actually does kind of manage to get to the countdown clock first. He takes out Celebi, who was hiding in his backpack because Celebi was wounded in the earlier skirmish.
Because they need to get Celebi back through the time ripple so that it will close before Kodai can use it.
Right, because it was revealed during the skirmish earlier that I think Kodai says, or somebody, they find out one way or the other, that the reason for all of the plants and everything dying 20 years ago was because Kodai used the time ripple for his own power.
He basically had this machine that sucked the time power out of the time ripple 20 years ago to give him the power to see the future. That's how he became so rich and powerful.
At the expense of all of the life in the city.
Yeah, dying. So now they're saying if he does that again, all the life in the city is going to die again.
And so Ash finally makes it to the countdown clock just before Kodai, when suddenly his Mismagius comes up from behind, does a psychic, and traps Ash and Pikachu. And now... in midair. Yeah.
And Celebi.
Yeah. And now Kodai says, haha, checkmate, and walks up, like he didn't say that exactly, but basically that, walks up to the time ripple and says, I did it. And I think earlier he also fights the Zoroark, which has made it there in the woods. Anyway, and he sticks his little metal arm.
I don't think he fights the Zoroark. I don't think they know it's around.
I think Zoroark got badly wounded just before this, though, because...
that
was Zoroark's final FU to...
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, so he sticks his arm thing into the time ripple. He sucks the power out. You see everything start to die around him. There's smoke billowing, and he's laughing. Ha, 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 I did it! And then you cut to Zoroark, and Zoroark gives a little smirk. And everything reverses, and it's back to the way it was, and the time ripple is farther away from Kodai than he thought it was. And he's like, what? But because he had this illusion canceller wrist thing. But when Zoroa bit his wrist, it broke the illusion canceller.
So Kodai was fooled by this illusion, and that gave everybody just enough time to... I think they actually attack Kodai and kind of like make him
everyone
back.
Else shows up just on time and starts attacking him. He's also attacking Zoroark with rage.
Choking out Zoroa here and there, and threatening.
With the Zoroa, and I think Zoroa eventually escapes and gets to be reunited with Zoroark.
Yeah, and they all manage to get to the time ripple before him.
And they send Celebi back through it.
Oh, I guess another thing of note though is, well, actually, I'll just get to that afterwards. Actually, no. Yeah, so. Right before they do that, though, Carl and everybody comes out of the woods, and they were just videotaping Kodai's moment of victory.
Because Ash was asking him, like, don't you care about all the plants and flowers and stuff? And Kodai does a classic, I always think of the end of Monsters, Inc. when they're recording him, and he says, I'll kidnap 1,000 children before I let this company die. It's like at that moment, they come out and they're like, we recorded the whole thing, and now everyone will know, like, the truth about you. But anyway, then they send Celebi back through the time ripple.
Kodai knows it's over, so he tries to run away into the Bakker Stadium.
And Zoroark tricks him one more time.
And gives him like a false platform, and then he just like stumbles face first into the...
And he like falls in the middle of the stadium.
Bakker Stadium, and kind of like gets conked out for a little while. And so everybody kind of comes together, but Zoroark's hurt because of what happened just previously. Then Celebi goes into the time ripple, gets extra power,
extra time power.
And then comes back out and brings Zoroark back to life, and Zoroark's okay.
Yeah.
And then they all basically walk over to the Bakker Stadium and are just staring at Kodai as he wakes up.
Judgmentally the next morning with Officer Jenny. Sorry, that was a big burp.
And that next morning, they've already put together Carl's footage and are broadcasting in the Bakker Stadium to his face and everywhere else in the city the recording of Kodai saying, I would, kill all of the animal, all of the life and plants in this city to get all of this future power that I've been using to become a successful businessman for all of these years.
That's pretty much
it. He
gets
arrested, he's busted, and everybody kind of like splits up from
and
there.
As usual, Team Rocket was there too.
Yeah.
All right. So, where we ranked it the first time. I ranked this movie. This was the 7th movie on my original list. It was right in the middle of my second tier, above I Choose You. I think I don't know. It's hard to remember the experience of watching this the first time. This is one of the ones that I don't remember so much.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know that I have much to say. What about you?
I remember that we were both blown away by the reversal scene where it looks like Kodai's about to win. And it's really brilliant because Kodai says the entire movie, I know I'm going to win in the end because I saw myself winning in a vision.
Yeah.
But that vision was an illusion. He was actually seeing the Zoroark's illusion of him winning. So that's a great plot twist because we're all wondering throughout the movie, how is it, like, is his vision wrong or does he actually win? Turns out it was an illusion. I remember us both being blown away by that moment. And I think that must have boosted it up a lot for you.
Yeah.
And not as much for me. It was about like 10th place for me. When I came away with it was, I remember there being a lot of the movie, people chasing Zorua or Zoroark and people chasing each other around. And the ending was great. Like, so I didn't really think like that highly about it.
Yeah.
But I thought it was one of the most creative endings in a Pokemon movie.
Yeah. So, our experience watching it again, I obviously didn't remember anything about this movie going into it, and I was very curious as to why it was so high in my list. And honestly, I was, again, like blown away by a lot of it. It was great that I didn't remember it because a lot of the kind of twists and turns, especially that ending with Zoroark, kind of got to hit me again, like, whoa. Especially because as you're watching, you're thinking, he succeeded. Like, he saw he was going to succeed, and he succeeded.
Yeah.
Because you have no idea what's actually going on. So it's a great kind of Pokemon movie moment that you don't usually get, where there's a moment of success for the villain. The other thing that really came across for me this time, and maybe this is like a sign of the times or something, but having the villain be someone who has unfairly gained a large amount of wealth and power, and who has control over the media, and is spreading fake news, kind of like hits home and is genuinely scary in a way a Pokemon villain is usually not. So I thought that was kind of cool to have someone who I feel like could be a real person aside from his hair.
His hair is ridiculous.
Apparently has naturally always had a giant yellow patch like a star in the front, even though the rest of his hair is purple and his eyes are yellow. So I don't know about that, but but yeah. What about you?
I thought the movie was really good. I think that what I previously thought of the movie, which was that a bunch of people chasing each other around and then the ending was great, is a huge, not giving enough credit for the rest of the movie, which is this really thrilling race against time. I think that Zorua and Zoroark and Carl and his family are not necessarily the most like thrilling characters that we've ever met in a Pokemon movie.
Yeah,
but
I'll agree with that.
I will say that the pacing is wonderful. And maybe best of all, Kodai, easily the best villain in any Pokemon movie, in my opinion, for the reason that he has a legitimately terrifying and threatening power. And that power is not, I have a big airship or I have strong Pokemon. It is, I can see the future where you've already lost.
Yeah.
You know?
And I've already used that power to, take power in the real world.
Yeah, like it's worked for him before. It continues to work for him. He seems on a victory course for victory. So it's like, even watching a Pokemon movie, you're like, how are they going to get out of this one?
I think another thing I remember you saying, though, is that you can see him kind of grow desperate towards the end, which was another thing you liked, right? Right,
yeah. He doesn't have this snooty, like, oh, you are all pawns of my game, I'm going to defeat you sort of attitude that all of the other villains have when all of those villains are obviously going to lose.
Sounded like a Yu-Gi-Oh villain there.
Yeah, those villains are obviously going to lose, and yet they have this snooty attitude and they go, oh my gosh, surprised Pikachu face when they do lose. Whereas Kodai is not only like really threatening, but you see him legitimately fearing failure as they both race towards the time ripple, and you know that this man is ruthless and desperate. He's killed all of the life in the city before, and he's happy to do it again.
He chokes Celebi.
Yeah, he
throws Zorua across the place.
Yeah.
He's like very physically brutal also in some scenes.
Yeah, he uses Zorua as a Zoruan shield against his own mother, basically, or not mother, but like adoptive mother. This is a desperate man. You know that he has everything to lose, and you've seen this kind of man before in real life, maybe, or like in other media, and he comes across as legitimately like desperate, like backed up against a wall, kind of like a scary person, and it's very, very satisfying to see Ash and friends not lose faith against this kind of villain and then really do like take him down in a very satisfying and creative way. When Zoroark does the big illusion saying your future power versus my illusion power, and then having him in the stadium where not only is he defeated in the sense that he didn't get to the time ripple, but everything that he's, all of his ill-gotten gains from the past 20 years are brought to light, and everybody, takes him down. It's very thorough, very satisfying.
Yeah, and I think another thing about this movie is that I think especially after watching a lot of Pokemon movies where questions were brought up and never answered or never addressed or never seemed to be taken seriously, this movie wraps everything up in a really nice way. Kind of I would say all of my questions that came up were eventually addressed, and I think the way that they kind of unravel the thread slowly is really interesting. Because again, at the beginning of the movie, you're like, I don't know what's happening, but in an intentional way, which is very different from I don't know what's happening, but you're supposed to understand what's happening in quotes. Especially using Zorua as kind of an in, where all we really care about at the beginning is this Zorua has been separated from its mother. Its mother is, being basically blackmailed into doing something that it doesn't want to. We want to reconnect the Zorua with its mother. This guy is apparently pretending to evacuate the city for some, you have no idea what is going on at the beginning. But everything that kind of shows up in the beginning there, connects in the end.
You're always
in a really
wondering,
nice way.
What's this guy's end game? What's he after? And all of the characters, what's he after? And they find out one after the other, the mysteries unraveled one after the other, and it all makes perfect sense. Yeah.
I think it's also nice to see Ash and friends being helped by some trusted adults, which is not always the case in these movies. Carl and Rowena and the parents and stuff are all adults who help them out, give them useful information. There's reporters. It's a good movie about how important investigative reporting is. So I don't know. It just wraps everything up in a really nice way, and it's kind of it's a lot more intriguing, I think. Than the average Pokemon movie.
It's very ambitious, and it lands it.
It's also great to see Pikachu and Piplup do some stuff on their own. There's this very cute scene. I can't remember exactly what part of the movie it's at, but Pikachu and Piplup and Zorua are running into the forest Pokemon. Oh, I think the forest Pokemon aren't trusting Zorua because Zorua's mad at Kodai, because Zoroark keeps telling them at the beginning, Kodai's the bad guy. Yeah. Everyone's saying my Zoroark is bad, but Kodai is the bad guy because he's trying to convince the city that Zoroark is attacking their city. So he attacks out of anger. Zorua attacks a screen. So the woodland animals think that Zorua is a threat. They're kind of running through the forest, and all the woodland animals are want to attack Zorua to defend their land. Pikachu and Piplup both step up, trying to say Pika, Pika, Piplup, Piplup.
Come on, for shame!
Stop! But they're all about to fight, and then Celebi comes out and just twirls around happily and gives everyone berries, and they're all like, okay, everything's great. Yeah. And it's really cute.
Celebi is really good in this movie. Celebi, makes a wonderful, life bed. It's really great the way that Celebi is characterized by the humans, the lady that we don't know what her relation is, saying Celebi's return, Celebi's a guardian. You really feel that way. You see how Celebi is both a extremely powerful and benevolent spirit who's also very vulnerable to any physical harm. And it really does a good job of having all the Pokemon really have a good time in the spotlight. Do you have anything else to say? No, it's great.
Okay, so re-ranking this movie, I ended up putting it just below Lucario and the Mystery of Mew. Again, really intriguing, really interesting plot. But again, at this point, we're kind of looking for that je ne sais quoi. And Lucario, I Choose You both have a little more of that je ne sais quoi than this movie does. I think the fact that I literally remembered nothing about it after 5 years, and I did remember stuff about those other two movies for sure, kind of says something
Mm-hmm.
about that part of it. I mean, I'm grateful that I forgot it because I kind of got to see the plot be unraveled again, which is, I think, the real good experience of watching this movie. This isn't a movie I would necessarily rewatch over and over because I think part of the experience is kind of seeing everything unravel and then be tied up really nicely at the end.
Yeah.
But it really is up there. Great villain, again, like Alex said, like amongst, if not the like best, most interesting villain we've seen so far.
Think about the competition.
In a Pokemon movie.
Mewtwo, various airship people.
I know, everyone's got an airship. Also, the airship is not in the movie for very long.
Yeah.
It's kind of at the beginning, and then they park the airship. And then they have some cool, weird boat cars, because this Crown City has canals.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, like, driving onto the street from the water, and, like, driving into the water, and, like, becoming a boat and stuff. But that stuff is, like, fine.
Yeah.
The airship just kind of sits parked most of the movie, so that helps.
Not an airship movie.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's where that ended up for me.
So for me, I put it just under the Volcanion movie and above Mewtwo 3D. I don't know that Gigi's giving me a face right now. I don't know that I think some people will disagree with me, maybe many people, but I have to respect the fact that I am a voice,
Yeah.
and there are probably people like me.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I can't get behind this. I guess for me, Kodai kind of makes this movie for me and the Pokemon, but the rest of the characters are a little forgettable for me. Basically all of them. Yeah, like, and so for me, who, watched the Volcanion movie, and I have, great memories of Team Rocket's involvement. I have great memories of a lot of the Pokemon there. I love Volcanion's characterization. It kind of just hit me in the gut, whereas, this movie hits me in the brain or whatever, like in the intellectual satisfaction. It's kind of like an Arceus versus Darkrai thing again, where
A little bit.
Volcanion tells a much, much simpler story, but it has a lot of moments that really stick out to me. Whereas all of the moments that stick out to me here are both just the satisfaction of watching it the first time or anything involving Kodai, frankly. Him getting, like, toppled, him, having these future visions, which are really funny for him to do and, like, really good for the narrative tension. But, I have to go with things that affected me in terms of characters and the plot more than the kind of like satisfaction of a really good mystery. It's, I'll say that, I'll happily say that to me, those movies are of comparable quality. Like I would go either way, really.
I will say that if you want to talk about forgettable characters, I would bring up two blonde kids and eye patch guy who wants a castle weapon for some reason from the Volcanion movie.
Yeah.
But, to each his own. Like,
yeah, and I'll say that those guys don't take up that much screen time, whereas the Carl and everybody take up a lot of screen time. I don't know.
But they move the plot forward.
Yeah, but it's not all about plot. Anyway.
Again, I think this is, again, a similar thing where it's like we just value... Everyone's different. I think this is a very subjective list in a lot of ways. The fact that we have so few differences is really amazing, I think.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those subjective, what do I, Gigi, like watching versus what do you, Alex, like watching?
Yeah, and it's not like it's dramatically different on Gigi's list. It's like one movie apart,
exactly,
1 or 2 movies apart. So it's, up to you, and it's mostly important which tier they're in.
Yeah, the tier, one thing that I keep coming back to is I think the tiers are a lot more important than the order of the movies in the tier.
Yeah.
And I'm even thinking if we get towards the end, I might split up the tiers a little more depending on how I feel looking back at it. But yeah.
Great movie.
Yeah. All right.
Really happy to have watched it again.
So we'll move on to our second movie. Speaking of Celebi, we got to see both Celebi movies in a row. The next movie we watched was Pokemon Forever, Celebi, the Voice of the Forest, a very popular and much commented on movie on Tumblr, as I discovered after we watched it.
I didn't even know that was the subtitle.
Yeah.
Sometimes called in Japan Encounter Beyond Time or A Timeless Encounter.
Wow.
Celebi,
Right.
Forever.
Forever.
Celebi, R-A-T-E.
So, let's get into the plot of this movie. It opens 40 years in the past. There's a young man named Sam traveling through these mysterious woods. A young woman meets him and says, "Hey, you better watch out. If you hear the voice of the forest, you better run because the voice of the forest will capture you and something bad will happen. Here's a loaf of bread. And he says, thank you. I'll keep that in mind, and walks through a very big tree tunnel thing. Elsewhere, we see Celebi being chased by a Pokemon hunter. Celebi's running away. Eventually, Sam hears Celebi being chased and says, what's that? And goes to find out what's happening. And the Pokemon hunter says, I'm a Pokemon hunter. And it's catching Pokemon in nets. So he grabs Celebi and he starts running away. Celebi's kind of hurt and growing a little desperate. So eventually they stop in front of this shrine. No, sorry, they don't. They stop in a random spot, and Celebi aggressively teleports them. There's a shrine there.
Yeah. To somewhere else, which is later discovered to be the future.
Yeah, in the same
40
spot
years
where there's
in the
now
future.
a shrine. So then we cut to the same poacher, who we can know it's the same poacher because there's a photo of him on the wall. But he's much older now, 40 years older, to be exact. And there's another poacher who looks much more modern, saying, tell me, I know that you saw Celebi around here sometime. Tell me. And he's like, I'm still a Pokemon hunter. I'm not going to tell you, basically. And this guy, the Iron Masked Marauder, comes out and says...
intimidates him by saying, you will tell me after I show you this.
Yeah.
And he busts out one of his Pokeballs, which he says, this is a dark ball. And he breaks open some of the cages that the older Pokemon hunter has kept Pokemon
specifically
in.
a Tyranitar.
And then he catches the Tyranitar in his dark ball and then re-releases it, saying, it is now powered up to its maximum level and under my control. And now that Tyranitar is just destroying everything. And then the older hunter is like, I'm terrified. I'll tell you everything.
Yeah.
And then we cut away
To Brock, Misty, and Ash. Ash is late for a boat. Brock and Misty are waiting at the boat, saying it's about to leave. We have our little montage with the theme song.
Yeah. So they're in the Johto region now, kind of halfway through, I think, in terms of the movies. Maybe, no, it's like an early Johto movie. Second one, because the first one's Entei.
Yeah.
And Brock sends out his Crobat to find Ash. Ash is in the middle of a Pokemon battle, wins it, then realizes that he's going to miss the boat and the montage. He runs, and then eventually jumps and makes it onto the boat.
Barely.
But being caught by this helpful-looking man who owns the boat, whose name is apparently Mr. White. Brings him onto the boat, and they start heading towards down the river. And Mr. White... Oh, actually, while they're on the boat, they look into the woods, and they just see Suicune standing there.
Yeah.
And they are like, oh my god, what was that Pokemon? And then they stop on the next boat stop. Ash, Misty, and Brock are seen calling Professor Oak on a TV phone, and they say, we saw this Pokemon, and Professor Oak says, if what you're saying is true, that may have been Suicune.
Yeah, I think he shows them a picture of Suicune, and they're like, that's it.
Yeah.
And Ash says, have you ever seen a Suicune, Professor Oak? And Professor Oak says, yes, I did, one time. And they're like, wow, that's cool, bye.
Yeah, and they take off, and then...
And then we cut to Professor Oak back in his lab, and he says, I wonder if I should have told them. So...
They continue on the boat, and then Mr. White says, y'all are Pokemon trainers, huh? Cool Pokemon down the river in that forest over there. Let me take you. And then they all head towards this forest, where they meet up with...
In a blimp. I think he turns the boat into a blimp.
Oh, yeah, it does that.
At some point.
Yeah.
They end up in Arborville, which, if you've played the Ruby Sapphire games, is basically Four Tree City. It's just a bunch of tree houses.
And then they meet up with the same woman who met Sam in the start of the movie, but now she's 40 years older, along with her granddaughter, who looks like she did when she was a young person, too.
They end up going to walk into the forest to look for Pokemon, and Ash runs into Sam with the Celebi, and they're like, oh my gosh, this child is hurt. I think they call him a kid, which is funny. This kid is hurt, and they bring them back to Arborville, and Sam kind of is more awake and feeling better, and this old lady in this house comes down and looks at him and says, oh my gosh, you're the boy who disappeared 40 years ago. And he's like, what? And she's like, I'm sorry to tell you, but you've been
transported
in time.
40 years into the future.
And she kind of explains that the voice of the forest, transports people through time. And she says, I kept your sketchbook. Your sketchbook was left behind. And I kept it just in case you ever showed up again. And sure enough, it's his sketchbook.
And then they start to see, I guess, meanwhile, you're kind of seeing it cut away to Iron Mask Marauder, who is looking for Celebi. He's stomping along in this spider mech. I think Team Rocket noticed that, oh, that's the Iron Mask Marauder.
He's a member of Team Rocket, apparently.
They go like, oh, let us be your servants, basically, and they kind of jump on board.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
They find... So Celebi ran away at some point because it was hurt. Sam and Ash go and find Celebi and they end up getting trust. Gaining its trust. And so they go get Celebi to bring Celebi with them. They're heading back to the town, but the Iron Mask Marauder shows up with his Pokemon and to grab Celebi and starts attacking them. Sam brings out a very old Pokeball where you have to unscrew the top in order to let the Pokemon out. And Sam and Ash fight with their Bayleaf and their Charmeleon. Fight the Pokemon.
But the Iron Mask Marauder has all sorts of dark Pokemon, and they're very tough. And so I think they start running away, if I recall.
Yeah, so they continue on. They get away, and they continue on in the forest.
Celebi was hurt, and they managed to bring Celebi to the Lake of Life.
Yeah, they kind of just show up at the Lake of Life, and it gets in the water and recovers because the lake water heals Celebi. They play a lot. They hang out. They're having a fun time.
Celebi. They all eat berries.
Yeah. Late one night, Sam is showing Ash his sketchbook, and he's sketching Pikachu and Celebi together. Ash says, "Oh, that's kind of like a Pokédex," and Sam is like, "What's that?" And he's like, "It's this Pokédex thing. It's an index of Pokemon."
Yeah.
It's a Rolodex of Pokemon.
Oh,
if we really want to go for probably the real origin of that term.
Yeah.
They start talking about how, about their life right now, and Sam is like, man, it really sucks that I can't go back to my time. I guess I'm just stuck here in the future forever.
And Ash says, I believe that, we'll be able to get you or something.
They adventure through the forest because Pikachu and Celebi are out running around, and they see a bunch of Metapod evolve into Butterfree. It's beautiful. They're all using Silverwind or something. It's all glittery, and they're all flying away, and Ash and Sam are up in a tree with their arms around each other, watching the Butterfree fly away, and it's a beautiful scene.
The next morning, they're continuing towards the village, and they run into the Iron Mask Marauder again, and Team Rocket. Team Rocket's working with the Mask Marauder, preventing them from escaping, and then, despite their best efforts, the Iron Mask Marauder manages to catch Celebi in a dark ball. And all of the forest Pokemon are actually out too. A bunch of woodland creatures come out trying to save Celebi, but then he busts Celebi out of the ball and says, "You can save Celebi, but it's already too late. He's under my control now." And Celebi uses its newfound max level power to blast away all of the woodland animals who are just hurt and confused. And then he's like, ha 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 ha.
Show me more of your power.
Yeah.
And Celebi whips up this storm and brings all this debris to create this big, giant twig monster, 3D twig monster that Celebi is controlling from the inside.
So it's like 10 stories high, and it absorbs Jessie, who is now
She's
dangling
tangled up in the middle of it.
In the roots. And now this giant debris monster is crashing through the woods, and
he reveals to Team Rocket at one point also that, now that I have Celebi, I'm more powerful than Giovanni. I'm not going to give Celebi to him. My plan is to take over Team Rocket and then take over the world myself.
So, presumably, the Iron Mask Marauder is just walking towards the forest so that he can get back to Giovanni. Yeah. Meanwhile, Ash and friends are flying along on the blimp and trying to keep up with the monster and stop Celebi.
Celebi attacks the blimp, and the blimp crashes into the lake.
The Lake of Life, I think.
Yeah.
But basically,
there's a big fight.
They all fight, and then Ash and
Suicune shows up.
Oh, yeah.
Importantly, Suicune shows up, who they have been told has the power to restore water. Very important. Purify water. And Celebi starts helping them out.
Celebi, Suicune.
Yeah, sorry, Suicune. Suicune starts helping them out. The Iron Mask Marauder says, I'm going to catch Suicune too. And they have more fighting.
And Suicune's helping out great, but eventually gets trapped in the twigs of the monster. Yeah. And the Marauder's like, this is what happens to anybody who defies me. Ha 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 ha. And it's just electrocuting
Brock's Onyx is taking on the Tyranitar that he sent out. And meanwhile, Ash and Sam are climbing up the place. I think Jessie rescues them at some point, actually, briefly, and says, hey, you got to stop this guy. They're climbing up to Celebi to tell Celebi, remember us, we were friends, remember us, we're trying to help you. Celebi's struggling between remembering them and attacking, and eventually they're holding Celebi, and eventually it recovers its memories, and it escapes the power of the Dark Ball. The Dark Ball shatters in the Masked Marauder's hands.
Yeah, the Masked Marauders, all of his other Dark Balls explode too, releasing control of all of the other Pokemon, I think.
And the big monster crumbles slowly into the lake.
And he falls down into the woods somewhere.
Celebi flies Ash and Sam out with its psychic power. It starts to lose strength, though, and kind of shrivel up.
And it kind of collapses at the edge of the lake.
And they put Celebi back in the water to try to heal it. But it doesn't work.
And it's completely shrivels up, and they're all devastated. Ash is like, you can't die, uses the D word.
And they're crying, and Sam is also crying and saying, like, you saved me, like I can't believe you're gonna die. And they're all crying a lot. But then Suicune comes and is like, hey, remember, I can purify water. So Suicune runs across the lake and does some magic purification. They put Celebi back in the lake, and Celebi is healed. Oh, no.
Still does not.
Sorry.
Yeah, still does not get healed.
Does not get healed.
Yeah, they're super devastated now that even Suicune can't make it happen.
Yeah.
When suddenly a brilliant golden light appears above the center of the lake.
And about 1 million Celebis come out. And they all dance around with their time. Yeah, okay. It's more than 20, I feel like. It's a lot of Celebis. Yeah. And they all dance around Celebi with their time power, and Celebi...
And then use their life power to bring Celebi back to life.
And then says, bye!
Oh, well, and then the older lady says, all these Celebi, they're the forest spirits of the past and future coming because they've heard the danger that Celebi is in.
Yeah, and they fly away.
And then Celebi completely heals, and she says, Celebi looks like it's ready to go back to the past, and it wants you to come along too, Sam. And so Sam says, oh my gosh, and then has kind of a tearful goodbye.
A very sad goodbye with Ash.
And then Celebi grabs onto Sam.
And they say, we're going to be friends forever. Maybe we'll meet each other someday. And they fly back to the past.
And Celebi goes back to the past. Meanwhile, you see the Marauder in the woods going like, oh man, I can't believe I was defeated. But then Ash, or like not Ash, but the Mr. White and the old lady come up and say, the forest folk have something to say to you. And they trap him in a string shot, and then they all laugh because he's captured now.
Yeah. So later, we cut to Ash, Misty, and Brock calling Professor Oak again and saying, hey, we saw Suicune again, and we saw Celebi. And Ash looks really sad. Professor Oak says, like,
what's wrong?
What's wrong? And Ash says, well, I met a friend, and I don't think I'm ever going to see the friend again. And Professor Oak says, I bet that you and Sammy will be friends forever. Don't worry about it. And Ash says, yeah, you're right. And then they go away, and Misty says, hey, wait. We never told Professor Oak Sam's name. How did he know? And they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. And then the boat's leaving, so they're like, oh, okay, we got to go get the boat. We're back at Oak's lab, and he's flipping through a sketchbook, his own sketchbook and he has the sketch of Pikachu and Celebi in there. And he says, it's almost as if it all happened yesterday. And then Jessie's really happy in the lake, and Team Rocket's really happy in the lake because it's very comfortable.
But then Tyranitar attacks them, and that's kind of how the movie ends.
And then later in the credits, we see Tracy find this Professor Oak sketchbook too, because he loves sketching and looking through it, being amazed.
Yeah.
All right.
That's pretty much it.
So we'll talk about where we ranked this before and why. I will go first and say that I had this ranked. I always forget how high up the list it is. It's the third movie on my list.
Third place overall.
So I won't tell you what's around it, but it was the third movie on my list. I actually watched this movie a couple years before Alex and I started this because I was at home on Christmas break or Thanksgiving break or something, and I was bored, and I went on Netflix, and they had a Pokemon movie called Pokemon Forever, and I was like, I like Celebi. I played Pokemon Crystal. And so I watched it, and I was like, whoa, what? That was Professor Oak? This is crazy and has all sorts of implications. Oh my gosh. And so later I told Alex about this movie, and I was like, dude, you'll probably never watch this movie. Mm-hmm. So I'll just tell you the spoiler ending, which is that Professor Oak is this kid, which means that Professor Oak met Ash as a kid and knew that he was gonna have a Pikachu and knew that he was gonna, like, meet Ash. Well, he knew that Ash existed, I guess. So then when he, like, met Ash as a kid, was he just like, oh my gosh, that's the kid that I met? Like, also, there's all sorts of Gen 2 Pokemon in this movie.
And she was gushing about Suicune's so cool.
And I love Suicune and Celebi. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, Suicune looks beautiful. It's amazing. Yeah. Anyway, you'll never watch this movie. I just wanted to tell you about how Professor Oak met Ash when he was a kid. And then a couple years later, lo and behold, or like a year later, lo and behold, we ended up doing this. Yeah. And so Alex had to watch this movie already knowing the spoiler ending. I had no idea we would ever end up doing this. Yeah. So it was really high up for me because I was very enchanted by this movie the first time I watched it, and I really enjoyed it the second time too, I guess. So.
Yeah.
What about you?
For me, I ranked it maybe like 3, 5, 6, 7, 8th place overall. I remember at the time...
That makes it feel less different, although it is a tier down for you. Well, it's in my first tier.
Yeah, it's a tier down and 8th place overall. And I remember at the time thinking, it probably deserves to be lower than this. I was being terribly generous with it, especially since it was like the 4th movie we watched. And then other movies were really good, and I decided to just shove a lot of them under Pokemon Forever because I was thinking, you know... Gigi likes it a lot, and I had it spoiled for me. I'm sure if I watched it without knowing the spoiler, it would have been amazing. So I was trying to be really, like, you know, generous with it because I didn't know how much knowing the spoiler ruined my experience.
Yeah. The other thing I remember from watching it with you was being in awe at how bad, because there's like a lot of 3D and 2D mixed up in this movie. Specifically, I remember us thinking how ugly and bad the Twig monster looked, and not in like an intentional way, in like a this is really bad 3D from 2000 that's really not well integrated into this 2D space way. That's the other major thing I remember from watching it the
Which
first
is funny
time.
because like the rest of the art looks really nice, like a lot of the scenes with
it's
Ash
just fine.
And so like it makes it even more jarring when this giant Twig monster shows up. So what do we think this time?
So watching it again, I want to say this is another one that I went in, just similar to I Choose You, saying, you know, Alex is probably right about this one. It's probably not that good. And this time, I was correct. And Alex was also correct. You got to be correct one time. I got to be correct one time. So we're evened out. It's fine. Like, it's not like, you know, don't get me wrong. This is not like a terrible movie. It's not like it leaves you with like a bunch of plot holes and like is confusing and has a bunch of extra stuff and like a lot of the problems that you see very, very low on the list. It's, you know, it has charming moments. I think the friendship between Ash and Sam is very cute, even though it's kind of weird later on when you know the truth about who Sam is. You know, the little Butterfree scene. Celebi, I think, is sweet. Suicune, I really like Suicune, so I always like seeing Suicune. Anything else that's good?
Yeah, I mean, my overall kind of feeling about this movie this time, it's like not a bad movie. It's not like, it's not particularly good though.
It really doesn't have the je ne sais quoi. It really doesn't have the like the tension, like narrative tension or surprise or anything like that, other than the spoiler at the end. But that's kind of just like a big reveal at the end. That really doesn't have to do with the actual journey you go on in the movie, quite frankly.
It doesn't really add to the movie itself in terms of the experience. It just makes it really weird, if anything.
Yeah, and vice versa. Like the story of the movie and the experience of the actual plot of this Team Rocket guy trying to capture Celebi and then making a big twig monster has nothing to do with the reveal at the end of the movie either. So
yeah, I feel like the suggestion with the title and everything is that, Ash and Sam will be friends forever, and now you see that their friendship is forever, even as Oak. But that's just weird, honestly.
Yeah,
like the way
there's
that,
a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's like more unsatisfying than it is like, heartfelt. I can't believe we get to be friends forever now. Sort of a way that it's trying to be bittersweet or something, but it really comes across a little like weird.
I think we both enjoyed the great pun in the song at the end where they go
Celebi, R-A-T-E.
Yeah, it's pretty clever. Pretty clever.
Celebrate. Yeah,
pretty good credits.
But overall, even though it has a few good moments, I think all of the Celebis coming out is cute. I think Ash and Sam being so devastated at Celebi's death is, cute.
Them using the D word in a Pokemon movie.
Yeah, like it's kind of like, not exactly moving, but it's something,
Something.
And
I was just gonna say, like, you don't come away from this movie feeling moved in any way.
No, and Ash and Sam are great together. But so much of the movie.
You mean Ash and Professor Oak?
Yeah, whatever. And the butterfly scene is cute, and a lot of the kind of like old art is still very cute and nice and luscious. But like the majority of the screen time is spent on people, places, and events that you don't care about. Like, Mr. White and the family is like, like they're there to serve the plot, but otherwise like not like particularly thrilling characters. A lot of the time is spent with them doing Pokemon battles that aren't particularly entertaining or dynamic, and watching this little mech monster go through the forest and then a big monster going through the forest. You're kind of like
Mr. White?
Mr. White's that guy who owns the boat blimp.
Oh, right, okay.
I don't know
I couldn't remember anyone's name.
Yeah.
I was like, who is that?
Right, so like you see a bunch of uninteresting people, places, and events like throughout the entire movie, and you're sort of just waiting for something to happen. So it's not well paced. It's not like thrilling, and it's not something that you're gonna go home like wildly thinking about.
I do think that the real value of this movie is the canonical implications. And I think that you can get that just from, as I did, telling somebody that this is a canonical thing in Pokemon. Yeah. You don't have to watch the whole movie to get that.
It's almost better if you don't watch the movie and somebody comes up to you and she's like, Ash actually met Oak back when he was a child.
And maybe like watch some scenes on YouTube or something.
Yeah. It's almost like the more entertaining way to get this like silly information that Oak apparently knew about Johto Pokemon and Celebi and was withholding all this information.
There's a lot of weird time stuff happening here too, like the Celebis coming from the past and future to come save themselves.
Yeah.
And also like Professor Oak seeing a Pokeball and a Pokedex 40 years ago, and hypothetically inventing the Pokédex?
Yeah, it's like
a lot of questions.
Cause and effect loop or whatever, because of the Pokédex being invented by its own inspiration.
Yeah. So
where do we rank it?
I don't think I have anything else to say about it. So this was a big leap for me, which was expected. Honestly, I didn't expect quite this big of a leap, though. Where did we rank it? Oh, there it is. Right, because we called it Celebi and the canon implications, because that's really what it is. I ranked it down in the enjoyable enough tier, 2 tiers down from where it was, or however many there end up being, right under Shaman, above the Diancie movie.
Yep. And for me, it kind of ended up ranking about the same place that it was in my list before. Technically, I guess a tier down. But in terms of the movies that are above it, kind of similar. The only movie that kind of leapfrogged it, I think this time, was the Shaman movie, which we grossly underappreciated the first time around, I think.
Yeah.
And Mewtwo 3D, but I never want to talk about that movie, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a big leap for me. Smaller leap for you, but still a leap.
Yeah, interesting to watch 2 Celebi movies back to back. And I think the Zoroark movie
I
does
do
want to
say that the Team Rocket guy does choke Celebi in this movie too. So everyone loves choking Celebi.
Everybody loves choking Celebi.
Which is horrible. Celebi's cute. This is also if you've ever seen the meme of Celebi being an onion fairy, this is the movie that comes from, because when it's shriveled up, it looks really weird.
Yeah. Must be horrifying for a child to see, like.
Oh yeah, it's like kind of creepy how
mummified,
it looks.
kind of.
Yeah, it's very creepy. It does kind of look like a shriveled onion, you know.
Either a mummy or a shriveled onion,
Yeah.
depending on how you want to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about it, right?
Yeah. How long are we going so far?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. We might be able to get this a reasonable runtime.
Yeah. Oh, geez. I just opened the calculator app. I don't need that. All right. Our last movie this time around
is the most recent movie ever released.
Yeah, it is. Huh?
Well, no, actually, Mewtwo Evolution.
Oh, no. Okay. Whatever. That doesn't count. The most recent movie.
Most recent original movie.
Pokemon the Movie, The Power of Us. You may get from the title that this is intended to be a reflection of or a response to or related somehow to Pokemon the Movie 2000, The Power of One. Especially because the last movie we saw was a Ho-Oh movie. And this is the
I Choose You
Celebi movie.
Yeah,
or the Lugia movie. I just have the word Celebi in my head now.
It's a good word.
The Lugia movie.
So this movie is a continuation of the I Choose You timeline, actually. And it's kind of in this like new wave of Pokemon movies that have nothing to do with a region or anything
where it's
in
just
particular.
Ash and Pikachu.
Yeah.
So
the first time we watched this movie, we actually watched it in theaters all together.
Yeah, I also watched I Choose You in theaters, actually, with a friend in Boston, where it was like a kind of an interesting age mix there. It was kind of fun.
Yeah. So let's talk about how this movie went.
Okay.
So
this is a tough one.
Gonna be a tough one too.
So we start out with a girl named Risa. She's at school, a real-life Japanese school, and she goes to visit her brother in the hospital, who seems to have broken his ankle or something.
Yeah.
And he tells her, "Hey, in this nearby city, what's the city? Fula City. There's this big wind festival going on. I really want to go, but I can't because my leg is broken. Can you please go for me? And I really want you to catch this Pokemon for me. So here's a Pokeball. We don't know what Pokemon it is. And he also gives her as a gift for doing this for him a pair of these red sunglasses. These really cute red sunglasses.
And so she goes home thinking, how am I going to catch a Pokemon?
I don't do Pokemon.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you see Margot, who is a small girl.
Small child.
Small child. Seeing her father leave for work.
Margot wakes up and opens her French doors to a picturesque view.
Yeah. Well, basically, she's excited for the Wind Festival too.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, so you're cutting from like different people all
she sees her father leave for work.
Yeah. So basically, all of these different cuts are to show a lot of people getting ready for the vignettes showing them getting ready for the Wind Festival. And then you see Ash Ketchum and his partner Pikachu on a tram heading towards the city as well.
Yeah.
While Risa's kind of like walking nearby. You see them both in the same shot.
You see this lady in the background getting scared by a sunflora, and you see this nerdy scientist looking dude with a Chansey looking really flustered.
Mm-hmm. And then you see this little girl with purple hair with her mom and uncle named Callahan, and she's all excited for the Wind Festival too.
Yeah. We cut to this little Pokemon channel thing showing up with this kind of whimsical looking host who explains that the Wind Festival is about how Fula City was once barren, but Lugia came and brought them the gift of wind, and the wind is how they power their city. They have cable cars that are powered by wind. They have basically all of the power in Fula City is wind power. And the Wind Festival commemorates how Lugia returns to the city every single year to return its gift of wind for an additional year.
So we cut back to the purple-haired girl Kelly with Callahan, and she's excited because she says, Callahan, you're the strongest trainer ever. Can I see your Pokemon? And he's being evasive. He says, oh no, I'll show you later. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I don't want to send it out right now.
And then he tells her the story of Fula City's founding and jumps up on a rock and announces the whole story to a bunch of people in a crowd, talking about how there was a dramatic fire and I was there and Lugia came.
And I summoned Lugia and Lugia came and put the fire out. And everyone applauds. The nerdy scientist guy, whose name is Torin, I'll just say that,
is hiding behind a rock.
And he's amazed. He's like, wow, I wish that I could talk like that guy talks. That's amazing. Callahan's sister Mia, who's the mother of the kid, keeps telling him, "Hey, like
you're lying.
You keep lying, basically, to this kid." And he's like, "The kid loves it. It's fine."
And meanwhile, you see these 3 kids selling lemonade, and they kind of go down the streets, and they run into the old lady.
Harriet.
Who we later find out is named Harriet. Harriet says, get out of here. I don't want to be around a Pokemon.
There's a Fanpy. And the 2 other kids say, hey, what are you doing? Stop. And they tell him, don't you know that that's Harriet? She's famous. She's world famous, which is a great kid line. She's world famous for hating Pokemon.
Yeah. And then they're continuing down the street with this lemonade cart when Margot, the mayor's daughter, knocks over their lemonade cart. And they all say, the mayor's daughter!
Yeah. So that's her dad is the mayor from the beginning.
Yeah. And then she says, sorry. And they all say, hey, you knocked over our lemonade stand. How are we going to do anything now? And then one of them tries to throw a lemon at her because he's so upset. And the lemon is caught in the midair.
By Ash Ketchum.
Who says, hey, don't be mean, basically.
Yeah.
And they say, Fanpy, use rollout. And they use their little Fanpy, who's, oh my god, such an adorable Fanpy.
Yeah. And Ash has Pikachu attack.
And like really smack Fanpy so bad it faints and knocks over a kid.
And says, want to go another round? And the kids are like, no, and run away.
And then Margot thanks Ash for his help. And meanwhile, Team Rocket is kind of watching on, and they say, hey, we could catch Pikachu now. But then
But maybe we need money and also food, so let's start selling Lumberry juice.
Yeah, so they decide to start Lumberry juice sales. And then we cut over to Callahan, who receives a Pokédoll, a Clefairy Pokédoll for winning a carnival game, and gives it to Kelly.
Kelly knocks into Risa, the girl from the very beginning. Risa's empty Pokeball falls out, and she says, hey, my brother wants me to catch a Pokemon. And she shows the Pokemon to Callahan, and she says, I think it's a really rare one. Like, you know a lot about your daughter just told me you know a lot about Pokemon, so can you tell me where to find it? And he's like, oh boy. And he says, oh yeah, that's a really rare one. It's up on that mountain, and he points to a mountain in the background. And
kind of at random.
She says, oh my gosh, thank you so much, and runs off.
And then you cut back to Ash and Pikachu enjoying some water fountains. There's a Magikarp there and a Psyduck all in having fun.
And we hear an announcement that for the festival there's going to be a Pokemon catch race competition. Kelly, the little girl, says, Callahan, you have to do it. You have to do it. You're the strongest Pokemon trainer in the world. And he's like, yes, I will do that.
Meanwhile, you see the nerdy guy.
There's a lot of meanwhile in this movie.
Yeah, you see the nerdy guy Torin, who's really anxious because he has to do a presentation.
He's a researcher. He has like a lab coat and everything.
Yeah. The old lady Harriet comes in and gives Torin kind of a piece of paper for some reason. To give to festival administration.
We're assuming it's like a noise complaint or something.
Yeah, for the festival, basically. And as Harriet leaves, I think a little bottle gets knocked over and hits her. He
startles her from coming up behind the Chansey because he's hiding.
Yeah.
And she knocks over a bottle of something, and it shatters on the floor. And he says, sorry. And she's like, watch what you're doing, kid. And she leaves, basically.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then it cuts away to Margot, who is in the hills for some reason, walks over to his abandoned building and leaves some food for a wild Ditto and Teddiursa, and also to a mysterious...
Very old abandoned building. Very, decaying, grass growing all over it.
Yeah, and seems to be talking to a mysterious Pokemon or something in the middle of the building.
And she gives it orange berries and some milk.
And says, I'll come back sometime.
Yeah.
And now they're all ready to... down in the city, everybody's ready for the Pokemon catch race. Just as Harriet left Torin's lab, Callahan burst into the lab and said, you know everything about Pokemon. I need you for something.
Yeah.
So Torin has now met Callahan as well.
Yeah.
So now we cut over to
the catch race. Callahan has an earpiece. We eventually find out that Torin is sending him information through the earpiece and like a visor thing, basically his glasses or something, so that he can tell him Pokemon type weaknesses and stuff so that he can catch the most Pokemon and win the race to impress his niece.
Mm-hmm. Ash is there too and ready for the catch race. And apparently, so this catch race they set up Pokemon all over the entire city that are to be captured in special balls and released at the end of the race. And the winner is whoever can catch the most Pokemon.
Yeah.
And they say, ready, set, go! And then everybody runs off. Ash is doing a great job. Callahan's doing a great job with Torin's help.
And then Callahan sees a Sudowoodo that's being chased by a Golduck that is mad because the Sudowoodo tripped it, I think, accidentally earlier.
Yeah.
And Torin says, hey, you could catch that Sudowoodo. It's weak to water. So if that Golduck gets it, then it's... And you have a Staryu that's weak to that's a water type. But Callahan instead goes and catches the Golduck and tells the Sudowoodo, you shouldn't lie to yourself, kid. It becomes a habit or something. And Sudowoodo's like, Sudo?
Yeah. Meanwhile, Ash is continuing to catch Pokemon, and then they notice that a Tyranitar is knocking over stalls and rampaging throughout the city because there's a cable wrapped around its neck by accident. And now everybody's starting to pay attention to this Tyranitar. The announcer is saying, oh no, there's a rampaging Tyranitar. And Ash and Pikachu say, let's go get it. And so they chase the Tyranitar.
Save it, not like get it.
Yeah, let's go save it.
Yeah.
So they start chasing the Tyranitar. They split up. Pikachu lures the Tyranitar under a bridge. Ash jumps off the bridge and lands on the Tyranitar and rodeos the Tyranitar to Pikachu, who uses an Iron Tail and cuts the cables off.
And the Tyranitar is
now calmed, and everybody applauds Ash for doing so. Yeah. And then it cuts to the award ceremony where it's revealed that Callahan has won first place in the catch race, but they're giving specific mention. I think the mayor has Ash up and says, but I would like to congratulate the second place winner who saved this Tyranitar.
Yeah. They also ask Callahan, hey, what's your next catch going to be? And Callahan remembers Risa showing him a picture of some Pokemon, and he says, oh, well, I heard that there's a really rare Pokemon somewhere here, so I'm probably going to try to catch that. We see a Pokemon hunter in a car who hears this or sees this on his computer or something and says, a really rare Pokemon.
Yeah, it's like a poacher Pokemon.
Yeah, Pokemon poacher.
Yeah.
Hunter, whatever.
Yeah. And then that's the end of that day's festivities.
Act 1.
But we see that at the end of that day, Risa is up on the mountain.
Yes, completely bedraggled.
Yeah. And then 2 park rangers say, hey, you shouldn't be up here. What are you doing here? And she says, I'm catching a rare Pokemon that's supposed to be here because this guy told me basically that it was here. She shows the park rangers the Pokemon, and they say, oh, that's just an Eevee. They're pretty common, but they're not around here. And she's like, oh, he lied.
She's really mad.
Yeah, she's furious.
And they also tell her, hey, like you better watch out. Like,
haven't you heard of Zoroark's
curse? And she's like, no. And they're like, okay, well, you better get out of here because Zoroark's curse.
I think also Harriet returns home
to
find that there's a bunch of Pokemon in her house.
And following her, too.
And she, I think, has to sleep outside because all of the Pokemon are in her house.
Room. And she is not happy about that.
Mm-hmm. Back
at the lab.
The Torin is thanking Staryu for helping Callahan.
Team Rocket is in the lab in the background, kind of sneaking around. But they cause some loud noises. Torin looks back and says, who's back there? And he comes with a flashlight and he hears that there's a Smeargle ink that they had been researching that kind of got spilled and cracked open. We see Team Rocket outside. They're like, oh, thank God we got away. And we see a shadow of a head in the window. Yeah.
I think that the Team Rocket also notices some SD cards, basically, that might have some important research, and
they do
basically take one of them.
Yeah.
And so Torin has one SD card next to the other. One of them's the research. The other one is video
Something
footage.
Else.
Well, we'll see.
So next day, Harriet wakes up. She's sleeping on the porch, but she's sleeping on a Heracross, and she is really unhappy. We then see Ash and Pikachu at the Pokemon Center. Very nice Pokemon Center hotel, I just want to say.
Actually, so Harriet actually goes to... Oh, sorry. My bad.
We're trying to keep track on Bulbapedia.
Yeah.
Risa sees Ash and says, oh my gosh, you were the second place winner of the contest. The first place winner kind of tricked me, so maybe you can help me. I need to catch this Eevee thing. And Ash says, okay, sure, I'll help you. They're out in a field. They find an Eevee. Pikachu hears an Eevee, and Ash says, okay, you got to battle it first. what Pokemon do you have? She says, I don't have any Pokemon. It's like a favor for my brother. So he says, okay, use Pikachu. And he kind of directs her to attack the Eevee and weaken the Eevee and eventually catch the Eevee.
Mm-hmm. And then she throws the Pokeball out, and then the Eevee comes out, and she says, it's so cute. But then Eevee says, ee! And is not interested in hanging out with Risa.
Yeah.
And he says, don't worry, you'll, grow together.
And they're kind of asking, getting to know each other. Ash says, I want to be a Pokemon master, or whatever Ash says. And then Risa says, well, I never used to be into Pokemon. I used to be a runner. I used to do track and field. I was the champion. But then I got an injury, and ever since, and it's healed up totally fine, but I stopped running ever since then. And Ash says, like, oh, well, don't worry. I know that now that you have Eevee, you'll be able to run again. Because if there's something you can't do, you can do it when you have a Pokemon by your side. Yeah. And she's like, whoa.
Yeah. And then they actually notice Officer Jenny coming by on a motorcycle.
Yes.
And then they kind of rush back and see, oh, what's happening?
So back at the research place, Harriet shows up to yell at Torin saying, hey, why are all these Pokemon following me? What the heck did you do? Torin says, oh, the thing you spilled yesterday was sweet scent, which attracts Pokemon to you. So that's why that happened. And Harriet's really mad. And he says, I'm sorry, we don't have anything that can do anything about that.
Yeah, so there's going to be a bunch of Pokemon following you.
So she's standing there being mad.
And then over at the kind of main festival area, everybody's kind of crowding around because they're noticing a bunch of scenes of minor vandalism, including rocks wedged in the trolley tracks, like damaged wires, all of those things. And so they have to temporarily kind of hold off on the festival.
Risa sees Callahan and she's going to confront him, but he says, please, please, please don't tell my daughter that or my niece that I lied. And she says, okay. And Kelly is amazed that she caught an Eevee, and she's like, yay, my dad helped you. You caught an Eevee. And she's like, the mayor says, hey, everybody, you need to go home. Before this, I think there was a little scene with the mayor and his daughter, right? Where they were back at home. And he said, he was like, how was your day, Margot? And she was like, oh, it was okay, something. And somehow Zoroark's curse gets brought up. And she's like, what if Zoroark is still around? And he's like, enough. Zoroark's is gone, and Zoroark's curse is a lie. We will talk no more about it. Anyway.
So with all this minor vandalism, some people are thinking, oh, maybe it's Zoroark's curse that the festival is being canceled for the day.
And Margot is really mad that they think that because she is like, no, Zoroark is good.
So I think the mayor recruits Ash to see what happened. And Risa gets volunteered as well because she's in proximity of Ash. And then Risa... And
Kelly says, you'll help too, right? And Risa says, yeah, you'll help, or else I'm going to tell your daughter that you lied to me, basically. Or your niece, and he says, oh boy, because he made an agreement with Torin earlier that he would do the presentation in exchange for Torin helping him with the Pokemon catching contest because he's such a good speaker. So he's like, I got that to do, but now I also have to do this. So he's kind of sweating.
And then the Pokemon channel host from earlier is talking about how, we're cleaning up right now, so the festival's on hold. And then you see the three kids again from the lemonade stand, and they're all talking about Zoroark's curse.
And Margot says, no, that's not a thing. Zoroark is good. So now they announce that the festival is safe. The festival is reopened. Torin goes and says, hey, Harriet, I have to go do this presentation, but I will try to find a solution to your problem. Callahan is also like, I gotta go do this presentation. So he's rushing to try to do that, but he arrives too late. Torin has to start doing the presentation, and he is completely stuttering. He doesn't know how to use the microphone.
He's afraid of public speaking, basically.
Yeah.
And that's why he wanted to have Callahan do it. And so he is just breaking down in front of all of these other scientists, and his boss says, just put on the presentation. So he grabs his SD card, puts a presentation into the laptop, but it turns out to be video footage that Callahan was streaming to him during the catch race. And now everybody is realizing that, firstly, this is really awkward at this conference. And secondly, is that the first place winner of the catch race cheating?
So there's a lot of embarrassment. everything kind of
Yeah, Torin like just like runs away. He's like so ashamed. Callahan just barely makes it there, only to see that his, secret is all up. Kelly sees what's happening in there and says, "Callahan, you lied!
I hate you!" And his empty Pokeball also drops, and she sees that he doesn't even have a Pokemon.
And I think in the meantime, Harriet's kind of still in the lab and is looking around because she's in the lab after looking for a way to figure out the sweet scent problem.
Yeah.
But kind of like looks around and sees that Team Rocket is just kind of like huddled in a corner trying to look hidden.
And so they decide to run away. They run out and they throw a smoke bomb into the crowd during the presentation.
Yeah, so now everybody's rushing out of the area because like kind of an explosion looking thing has gone off, so everybody's trampling everywhere.
And Eevee gets kind of trampled.
Yeah, Eevee gets trampled. Team Rocket is running down the street out of the out of the area. Really funny. James is running with his arms flailing in the air. Yeah. It's really good.
And Ash chases them, but they manage to get away. They're at the Pokemon Center. Eevee is recovering, but has a little bandage on its leg. It sounds like Kelly, who was kind of a sickly child, is not doing so well now, and Callahan feels really bad about it.
And so he decides he's just going to leave. Before Kelly recovers, he's just going to go home.
Yeah.
And everybody's bummed out right now.
Torin says that Team Rocket stole Effect Spore, a little kind of vial of Effect Spore, and that she's told Officer Jenny. Harriet says, "You know what? We should all go home and get some rest." Callahan, tells his sister and his niece that he's gonna leave. Sudowoodo is following Callahan, but he keeps telling him, "Stop following me." Sudowoodo's been kind of following him around the last few scenes, and he says, "Stop following me. I don't need a friend," basically, or I don't want a Pokemon. Like I know you're trying to throw my words about lying back in my face, but whatever, go away.
He kind of like falls asleep on a park bench
and throws away his Pokeball.
His empty Pokeball, yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you cut to the mountain where Team Rocket is celebrating because they successfully stole something from Torin's lab. And then Jesse says, "All right, show it to me." And then everybody says, "Wait, I thought that you had it. I thought that you had it." And James says, "No, I did a cool flip over the back and tossed it to one of you, didn't I?" And then they are all like, "Oh shoot, if I did a cool flip and nobody caught it, then where is it?"
Yeah. And then we cut to it kind of just resting on the hillside.
Yeah.
A little bit cracked.
Yeah, so it's kind of like this purple glass orb resting on the hillside.
So the next day, we wake up and apparently all the windmills are no longer turning, and the wind has significantly died down. The eternal flame, which is kind of symbolic, but apparently also practical, kind of torch thing at the top of the hill near the city, has been stolen and is gone.
Meanwhile, a bunch of the researchers in the lab are talking about what a fiasco that presentation was, and Torin overhears them and walks away very, very upset and not hearing that his boss is like saying, "No, none of you care as much about Pokemon as much as Torin does." So he's just devastated and walks away though, because he didn't hear that whole scene.
We see Mia and Kelly. Kelly is kind of sad for what she said to her uncle, but Mia says it's okay, he'll be fine.
Yeah.
Ash and Risa are rushing to the Eternal Flame. They meet the mayor and Harriet. The mayor says it's really important. It allows Lugia to find Fula City and to continue supporting us with wind power, which powers our entire city.
Yeah,
so Ash says, "We'll help." They go onto a big platform. Pikachu smells something and follows the scent trail, which leads all the way back to Smeargle and Torin. Torin says, "Oh, Smeargle," but Smeargle didn't steal the Eternal Flame. "Oh, the spilled Smeargle ink that I saw the other night. So we have to follow that." So they return and they see that there's little footprints that Torin can see with his UV flashlight. Okay.
And meanwhile, they cut away to Margot at the abandoned building, and it's revealed that she is with Zeraora,
Yeah.
who is the mythical Pokemon, a yellow cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, a yellow
cat
cat
guy.
person.
Yeah.
But then two hunters arrive, looking to catch Zeraora, and she jumps out and says, "Hey, yeah, legendary Pokemon, saw it. It's over there on the right."
But one of her little friends,
Teddy
Ursa, knocks a rock over, and they see, hey, what are those? Let's catch those too. And she says, no, you can't. Just go get the legendary Pokemon. It's over there. And they say, no, we might as well get those too. And they're about to attack. Margot's trying to shield the Pokemon, but they're going to attack her anyway. And Zeraora jumps out and shields Margot, and they say, oh, this is the one that we were looking for. I've never seen this Pokemon before.
So the poachers bust out their Pokemon and attack Zeraora, who is really not able to fight back because he's still wounded for some reason. And they're almost about to fire a net and capture Zeraora when suddenly
Ash Ketchum shows up.
Like an iron tail out of the blue shatters the net. And Ash and Pikachu are there along with the mayor, everybody. And the mayor says, you better get out of here or I'll use legal action. And then the poachers run away because they're like, oh, God, that's the mayor.
So they shine a light on Margot's foot and figure out that she was the one who stole the Smeargle ink. She explains that she met Zeraora a long time ago when she was playing, or a while ago when she was playing, and a big rock almost fell on her from a mountain, but Zeraora saved her. Zeraora got injured, though, and Margot has been trying to help it recover. And she wanted to stop the Wind Festival to going ahead because Callahan said there was a rare Pokemon, and she was afraid that hunters or people would come up and try to catch Zeraora. And so she wanted the Wind Festival to be canceled so that there wouldn't be these big crowds trying to find this rare Pokemon.
Yeah, so presumably she was doing all of the vandalism, and then Tauren also finds the Eternal Flame literally right there in the abandoned building, and she says, I took the Eternal Flame too. When I found out that my vandalism was not stopping the festival, I had to do more drastic measures.
So her father, the mayor, tells her that Zeraora was actually once the master of this land and peacefully lived in the mountains, but it was people who caused the big fire 50 years ago by trying to search for Zeraora. And Zeraora has become incredibly hostile towards human beings since then because he doesn't trust people because they, burned down the forest by trying to capture it. And so the previous mayor made up Zeraora's curse in order to stop people from going to the mountains so that Zeraora wouldn't attack them.
Zeraora's curse. I don't think we explained exactly is nobody should go on the mountain, otherwise really bad things will happen.
I think, it's just kind of a general thing.
Yeah.
So that's all nicely wrapped up. But then there's a big explosion
on the side of the hill.
On the side of the mountain, and you see a big purple smoke coming out that we figure out is Tauren figures out very quickly is the effect spore. And Chansey has uses aromatherapy to heal some Pidgeys that have been affected by the effect spore explosion, but it's moving closely to
It's moving through the city, paralyzing everybody's Pokemon.
Yeah, it's moving quickly through the city.
It's a poison, they state.
Yeah. Ash says that we all need to help with the situation because even if we can't do stuff ourselves, we can do stuff when we have Pokemon by our side.
It's Pokemon power.
Pokemon power. And so they all say, yes, we're inspired to help. And Tauren says, okay, if we could get a large supply of natural cure, then we could combat effect spore. But that's kind of complicated. And he says maybe if we could make a similar bomb of that, then Harriet says, hey, that big old windmill on the mountain, I made that a long time ago. I think we can still power it up if it still moves. And then we could blow the effect spore or blow the natural cure to the effect spore to kind of like neutralize it.
So they all split up. Harriet and Tauren head over to the power plant to attempt to. I think Callahan goes with them too.
No,
Callahan's not here.
Yeah.
Harriet and Tauren go over to the power plant to try to get it started again. Ash, Margot, and Risa will try to treat Zeraora and any other injured Pokemon.
And the mayor offers everyone the best of luck.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
so, in Fula City, Officer Jenny is telling everyone to evacuate. You can see all of the smoke everywhere. Callahan answers his phone. Mia and Kelly are on the cable car up above the city, which has been stopped. and they're, hoping that the smoke doesn't get in.
Yeah.
And Callahan is completely devastated because Kelly's already sick, so he's extremely worried. Pseudo-Wudo appears and basically says, Pseudo-Wudo, I want to help you. Pseudo-Wudo shows Callahan that he has the Pokeball that Callahan threw away, showing that he wants to be caught by Callahan and he wants to help Callahan. They have a very emotional moment, and he accepts Pseudo-Wudo. He catches Pseudo-Wudo in the Pokeball, and they're hugging, but then the effect spore is getting closer, so they have to run away.
But they resolve to, go save it rather than run away, which Callahan was thinking about doing.
So the mayor is...
I think the mayor is checking in with his staff about what to do. Torin
is telling his coworkers. He says, "You know what? I know that you guys don't like me because I'm quiet. But I have to help. I need you guys to help me do this." And his boss says, "We actually like you." So
he finds his voice using Chansey's support. He has a Chansey who's been supporting him the whole way.
Yeah. So they start trying to make a natural cure bomb, basically.
Team Rocket
There's another explosion.
Oh yeah.
Where there is a big fire now on the mountain at the power plant. Because of the effect spore, basically, interfering with the power plant.
It shorted the city's power supply and caused
And so now all the power in the city is out as well. All the non-wind power that was already out. Harriet is very triggered by this and kind of faints and falls down.
But then she gets back up, and they all resolve to fix that situation as well. So Harriet, Torin, and Callahan all head towards the power plant now to try to get... So there's a power transformer, and there's also a power plant.
Because Callahan has showed up and been like, I want to help too.
Yeah.
Team Rocket manages to get into the research pavilion. They are back at their Lumberry business. And Torin thinks, oh gosh, what do we do? Because now the power's out, and we can't do this research anymore. And try to figure this out, but he sees the lumberries and he says, hey, we could use those instead. So we'll kind of basically just make a big concentrated lumberry thing and explode that instead.
Right, yeah, because he was almost about to succeed, but then the power outage stopped his plans, but now he's going to make a lumberry bomb.
So now we cut to Callahan and Harriet, who are on their way to the place up top, and the flames are blocking their path. Callahan says, hey, our Pokemon can help and spray the fire. But Harriet says, no, because... I'll let you tell this part.
Yeah, so she says, I can't let them do it because... And then she remembers my Pokemon partner, Snubbull, basically, back when she used to work at the power plant, which initially caused a giant fire 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Right as the power plant was exploding, Snubbull went back in to grab...
Not the power plant. Her big
it's like wind turbine.
Wind turbine thing, which is separate from the power plant.
Yeah, yeah.
Just to be clear.
Yeah, there's a transformer power plant, and then anyway. Yeah. So the wind turbine, and then the Snubbull grabs the key out of the turbine right as it's running out, trying to get back out of the exploding turbine. Harriet's running to try to save Snubbull, but Snubbull gets engulfed by the flames as it throws the key just into Harriet's hands, but Snubbull is just out of reach, and so she collapses to the ground, saying I don't want Pokemon to sacrifice themselves like that again.
I had only reached my hand out a bit farther.
Yeah.
And Callahan says, you know what? We need to keep going, and she sees the ghost of Snubbull come up and hug her.
And she realizes the key. You gave this to me that long ago because you were thinking about this exact moment, and you were there for me, and you're there for me now.
Now it's my turn.
Yeah, my turn to
So
help.
They extinguish the fire, and they continue going. Meanwhile, Zeraora has run away because it sees all of this stuff going on, and it's frustrated and angry and wants to save the Pokemon. Ash and Margot are following it to the power plant. Zeraora is fighting back against them, and Ash is doing his classic, I know you don't trust people, but, and he's electrocuting Ash, but Ash is withstanding it and saying, no, we want to be your friend. We want to protect Pokemon too.
And so I think suddenly explosion or something is about to hit the forest Pokemon nearby, or a stray shot or something.
I think that's later.
No, that's later. Okay.
So Torin has succeeded. They have the Lumberry thing, and they drive all the way up to to the big wind turbine thing. The mayor says, "Hey, everyone, Zoroark's curse is fake. We need everyone to come with their Pokemon to try to combat the fire. There's a young man I know who said that if you can't do something alone, you can do it with Pokemon power." So they're back at the abandoned wind turbine thing.
Harriet inserts the key that's from Snubbull and succeeds in getting it moving, but there's no power, so all of the Pokemon have to push the turbine to get it moving, and so it starts moving and all of the wind is starting to go, but they now need the Lumberry Bomb, which they're still waiting for.
Yeah.
So I think at some point also we didn't mention Ash had split up with Risa. He told Risa... Oh,
yes. Before Ash went off to run after Zeraora, he told Risa...
You've got to get the Eternal Flame back on the pedestal.
You're the only one who can do it. And she's like, no, I can't run. And then she sees her Eevee trying to drag it, even though it has its bandage, trying to drag it with its mouth over there. And she is, like, tearing up, and she's saying, Eevee, like, even you want to do that.
Even though you're, like, hurt and stuff.
Yeah, I'm inspired. So she takes off her shoes, and she stretches, and she has Eevee on her shoulder, and she starts running toward the place.
Towards the big tower with the Eternal Flame.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're back with Ash fighting Zeraora. Margot's saying, Zeraora, you got to trust people. But as Zeraora continues to attack, the attacks rush towards the forest Pokemon by accident. And then Ash himself... not Pikachu, he jumps in the way of the attack and takes a huge electric shock, much to Zeraora's surprise. Pikachu and Margot rush over to see if he's okay. He's okay. And Zeraora is surprised and kind of sees that, humans do care about wild Pokemon sometimes. And Ash says, great, now we're friends?
Yeah. Good. So back at the propeller, Tauren is there and he says, here's the Lumberry stuff. Callahan says, I will throw it with the help of my Pokemon to get in front of the thing so that the wind can blow it. And Tauren says, okay, so Tauren and the Pokemon are pushing the turbine. They move the propellers. Callahan tosses the Lumberry. Sudowoodo hits the Lumberry to... propel it forward
further into the turbine, and it hits right in the center of the turbine, and it explodes, spreading Lumberry gas all over the turbine, which then blows it into the city. And it
starts healing the effect spore. But the fire is still happening. Zeraora is still trying to defend the Pokemon, but the mayor and all the people of Fula City arrive, well, probably not all of them, but a lot of the people of Fula City arrive with their Pokemon to lend a hand. Zeraora is hostile again, but Margot says, hey, like, I know that it's okay, like, let them help or whatever. Ash is helping. They get the sprinkler system working. Margot rushes over, but a big tower thing falls and almost falls on Margot, and Zeraora saves her again. And all the people see Zeraora push the thing all the way back up, and they manage to put out the fire. Mm-hmm. And Margot says something, I think, earlier she says something about how, like, people think about Pokemon as like helpers and stuff that we can't do.
Pokemon power, yeah.
Yeah, we can do with Pokemon power, and I wish that Pokemon felt the same way about us. So I guess that's what inspired it. Okay.
And then they notice that the Eternal Flame has kind of come back on. Risa has reached the pedestal with the help of Eevee and puts it back in place by sunrise. And a giant beam of green shoots into the sky, pushing Risa back. And then they... all of the...
Zeraora is falling back at the place, and the Pokemon kind of save it. Lugia finally shows up. Yeah. And Lugia is flying around. Everyone sees Lugia, and it brings rain to kind of finally put out the fire. And they find out that everything has been kind of done. The mayor says that Zeraora saved the city, but Harriet says no. Everyone saved Fula City together.
Yeah.
And Lugia flies around looking cool. And they finally get to reopen the festival for the last night.
And so the last night, they're all holding the big glow lamps, floats, Japanese thing that I don't really know anything about.
Yeah.
And the mayor's making a speech, and he recites Ash's line saying, "If you can't do it alone, one can do it with the help of a Pokemon." And then he says, "We hereby revoke the lie of Zeraora's disappearance.
And we're now going to live in peace
of Zeraora
with it."
Yeah, we'll live in peace with what we've done, and we'll move together in honesty.
Everyone lets the wind things go up in the air. After the credits, we see Risa back at her brother's place because while she was running, her brother randomly called her and said, "Hey, I can help you get to the
Eternal Flame.
The Eternal Flame." And she's like, "What? How do you know what's happening? How do you know where I am?" And he's like, "Don't worry about it. I'm going to help you." And he's the one who helps her get there. So after the credits, she shows up and she takes her glasses off of her face, her sunglasses, and she pointedly is like kind of shaking them at the camera. And she says, "How did you know that this was where I was, and how did you help me out?" And he's like,
It's kind of high tech.
Yeah. Also, we find out that he was the Pokemon Channel guy.
Yeah.
Just as a fun fact.
Lively guy on the Pokemon Channel.
And that he was like, "I just wanted images of the Wind Festival. I'm not going to tell you how I did it, haha," as she shakes her glasses that he gave her at the camera.
Suggesting he hid a camera in it, basically.
And then we see Ash and Pikachu going to their next adventure.
Yeah, that's it.
So long.
So a lot of things happened in this movie.
Oh my god.
Just the summary alone went as long as entire segments.
Oh my god. Okay. There's a lot of meanwhile going on in a lot of these, especially this one.
Bulbapedia is summary is like a million.
We really needed it that time.
Yeah.
Okay. So, first time watching it. We saw it in theaters. It was initially ranked for me. It was the 6th movie on the list. Right above Zoroark, Master of Illusions. 3 spaces below Pokemon Forever. I know. I remember really liking it. We were all really impressed with it. We saw it in theaters.
Yeah.
Snubble was very moving.
Yeah. Ghost of Snubble.
Ghost of Snubble. I remember we really liked the reveal at the end about Risa's brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a fun movie with a lot of like interesting things going on. I don't remember thinking too much specific about it. What about you?
I remember thinking it was so well directed, well paced. I was like, is this like... And it turns out it's actually a different director than every other Pokemon movie we've talked about so far.
Yeah.
So new director on board. And I remember thinking, this is so well directed. It's so well paced. It's such a good movie without any weird Pokemon movie like qualifications.
Yeah.
I was crying in the movie theater at Sudowoodo and Callahan.
Oh yeah, that
together.
Was the moment I cried too. Like,
yeah.
It's very moving.
Yeah, I was blown away by the twist at the end. I was really impressed. I ranked it 5th place overall because it was a while since I'd watched the other movies in the list, and I thought it was really good. I wasn't sure where to put it. Exactly.
Both of us had it in the 2nd tier of our list.
Yeah.
Watching it again.
Yeah.
Again, really impressed with it. Both of us were excited for this. We knew it was going to be great. It's a real movie. Like,
yeah, it really is.
You know what I mean? It's a real movie. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on. Speaking of, like, how we said in Zoroark, how they tie everything up really nicely at the end. Mm-hmm. Everything is tied. They do a really good job of the vignettes of different characters who end up coming together. They do a really, really good job of that, I think. All the characters are really well, like, drawn, both metaphorically and literally.
Yeah. It's not easy to create an ensemble cast. There's a few movies that have like really strong ensemble casts movies, and this manages to succeed without any confusion at all. I know it was a long summary, but when you're watching the movie, it's all comprehensible.
Yeah.
And they do it with these cuts from one to the other, where you're always
tell. There was a lot of cuts.
Yeah, where you're always able to follow what everybody was doing, and it keeps it interesting. In TV, they do this a lot, and they do this in the Game of Thrones books too. Every chapter is literally a cut to another character, and so this is like a very popular TV technique that they use to great effect.
A lot of books do that.
Yeah. I think they do it in Harry Potter a lot too, but less so.
Not so much.
Not as many characters. Yeah. But they draw each of the characters very well. I remember thinking the first time I watched it, Harriet and the Pokemon following her around. It's hilarious. It was great comic relief in this one until you realize it's not comic, because the reason she hates Pokemon is because terrible tragedy of Snubbull.
Yeah.
Callahan is strong. There's not one thread that you don't care intensely about in this movie. I was bowled over, and that's just the movie itself. Without and then you talk about the fact that every single shot is chock full of beautiful imagery, cute, adorable Pokemon in the background of every single shot.
Very similar to how we talked about how I Choose You is very pretty. This is also a very pretty movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was bowled over watching this again. I thought that it was going to be good, and I was ready for it to be good. I was taken by surprise by how good it was.
Like, I knew it would be good, but it's really good. It's really good.
Yeah. Especially since I was wondering, like, oh, was I just influenced by the fact that I was in a movie theater?
Yeah.
Is it really that good? It's really that good.
Yeah.
Like, moments like that when Torrin puts the evidence of Callahan cheating up on the stage is this really cringy shock moment that, you know, you're so upset for everybody involved. It's real drama, real humor. The characters are all very moving.
Yeah.
I think that it really does put Pokemon in a different space than it used to be. It's a real movie, but it has Ash and Pikachu in it, you know?
Yeah, and Ash and Pikachu are just part of the ensemble cast. And I think it's because, you know, sometimes before we would complain, oh, like, you know, Ash and friends don't really matter in this movie, or Ash's companions don't really matter. And I think this movie does a really effective job of making Ash be just part of an ensemble. He's not, you know. And I think, again, going back to the title, The Power of Us, I think in a way this is kind of a response to The Power of One, where The Power of One was all about the world will turn to Ash. You, Ash Ketchum, are the only person who can save the world in this moment. You are the prophesized chosen one.
Yeah.
And this movie is very much not about that.
Yeah.
It's about all of these people, like, just choosing to come together and help out. And Ash just being one of those. Honestly, quite frankly, Ash not really performing the most important roles, even.
Yeah.
In this kind of saving the city sort of story.
You see all of these, like, awkward, broken, busted up people, like, come together and become the best version of themselves with honesty and the power of their trust with their Pokemon.
Yeah, they say that whole, like, what you can't do on your own, you can do with Pokemon thing, like, 5 times.
It's great branding.
Yeah, it's great branding. I was also saying at the end, I was like, so is the message of this movie that, like, if you can't do something, like, too bad because Pokemon aren't real. So.
Yeah. So all of us people in the real world that suffer like this, we don't have a cute giant Chansey to tug us in the back of our.
Yeah. But I think this movie does a really good job of even though each of the characters, you know, only gets a kind of a fraction of the screen time. They all, I would say, feel a lot more fleshed out than the average character in most of these other movies.
Yeah, one of these characters could carry an entire movie.
Like, we can argue about, you know, whether, like, Kodai or someone else is, like, more compelling as a character, but, like, these guys all just completely blow it out of the water.
Blow it out of the water.
Like, we're not even kind of in that discussion anymore.
Yeah.
And with that, I want to say that both of us have moved this up to the next tier up.
Yeah.
So this is the first movie in the tier that we're currently calling Unqualified Enjoyment.
Yeah. And I would be incredibly surprised if this is not the top tier.
Yeah. I would be, I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe one of these next movies will really blow us away. But what is likely to be the top tier. And this is the only movie in that tier. That was easy decision for both of us. We both had kind of no, you know, sometimes it's hard, but there was no hemming and hawing about this. This is easily the best movie we've watched so far. It's a great movie. I think you should all watch it.
Everybody should watch this movie. It's so good.
Especially if you like Pokemon. But even if you, like, don't like Pokemon, it's still a pretty good movie.
Yeah,
it's a compelling story, I think. Compelling enough story.
Yeah. It's a story about hope, togetherness, about doing away with historical revisionism.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah. So, and just again, like, seeing all the characters kind of threads come together is always satisfying, you know, just in a purely, like, narrative satisfaction way. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
With, like, the Wind Festival pacing it out, like, day 1, day 2, day 3, like, all of that.
Yeah.
It has this great flow of ramping up.
Yeah.
You can go on and on.
Like, I'm like, you know, another great thing, like, a lot of the times, like, Pokemon movies will kind of hint. Oh, sorry, my cat just did a really cute stretch. Will kind of hint at, like, at something going on, or, like, what, you know, there's not a lot of, like, mystery left for you. But I think there's absolutely no way to see coming that this little girl has been the one sabotaging everything.
Yeah.
Like, it's really very subtle and in the background, and you almost kind of forget it's going on amongst everything else. It's really interesting.
Yeah, like the major, like, oh, the wind has stopped, like, you know, big plot, like, conflict is done by one of the earliest, like, you know, characters, and for a good cause, too.
Yeah.
In a way. It's, just And what a message too, like the, you know, power of everybody coming together and also the power of the Pokemon Company.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like it's something that, you know, any movie watcher can go in and enjoy. The message of these cute cuddly creatures like coming together with people and inspiring them to go beyond themselves.
Because really what it's about is it's about all of these people who don't know each other coming together to do something important.
Go beyond what they believe they can do. Yeah. And be the best version of themselves by, you know, being honest and having good friendships.
Like all of them have a great moment of like overcoming something that you know, they didn't think they could do. Except maybe Margot. But that's okay. She's like 6.
Yeah. And well, I mean, she and her dad come to like have a shared understanding.
A better understanding. Because there's kind of an implication early on that they don't, you know, get along super well. They're not very close. Like they have some disagreements, but they come to a better shared understanding in this movie too.
Yeah, they really learn to trust each other because like you as a person watching the movie are not sure whether or not you trust this mayor, and he's great. Like, you know.
I think the last thing that I really want to emphasize with this movie is that this was Team Rocket's fault.
Oh yeah, they stole the.
They stole this thing. I don't really know why it exploded. I guess it's because it was cracked already or something, and the pressure was too much. But they stole the thing and they lost it.
And then they fixed it by having a lumberry cart in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, but like this for once, this was all their fault.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is also great to see them being relevant. So.
Yeah, I guess they don't get an emotional like connection with the power of us or something.
But I feel like they're, you know, it's all very convincing because it would be one thing to have Team Rocket do a real evil plan. That's not very convincing.
No.
And also having Team Rocket just there, you're like, okay, well, they're just there. But having them make something really, really bad happen by just deciding kind of on a whim to steal something and then losing it is very Team Rocket. Yeah. So it all tracks also, you know. Yeah. No one is out of character.
Yeah. I think this is a very modern Pokemon movie too, because it very focuses on the relationship of one Pokemon partner with their trainer.
Yeah, which is kind of the
new branding.
Yeah, the new branding.
Yeah, and so it's a beautiful vision of what that could look like, you know?
Yeah.
When you have a bunch of people with their Pokemon partners and what kind of adventures and what kind of... It's so different from any of the animes and all the other movies in terms of the way that it's structured. The world is a little bit more realistic than the average Pokemon world. You see a real high school where Risa did real track and field.
Yeah.
And you see Pokemon interacting in that world. So
yeah,
it's like a weird vision of what Pokemon could be in a way.
Yeah. All right. So that about wraps it up. Next week,
we're coming up on the top of it.
Coming up on the top of the list, we are going to be watching... I can never remember the titles, and we have all these weird versions of the titles. Pokemon the Movie 3. No, Pokemon 3, the movie, Entei, Spell of the Unknown.
Yeah.
Is the first movie we're watching. The next movie we're watching is Pokemon Destiny Deoxys.
Uh-huh.
And the next movie we're watching is Pokemon...
A little movie called...
The first movie.
Mewtwo Strikes Back.
And so you might be able to figure out what the top of our list is at this point, but we'll save that for next week.
Yeah. So join us for another 3-movie episode, and then the final episode...
These are all bound to be pretty good, I hope so.
Yeah. And then the final episode will be a solo movie, followed by a retrospective of the list.
Yeah, kind of general discussion, so... Yeah, thank you for listening to the Pikachu Project Project. Mm-hmm. I'm Gigi.
I'm Walex.
And I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.